Hey guys, it's me Emily, and today's video is going to be a kind of more different type video. It's going to be something that I don't really talk about that often, and something that I just want to make a video about, just to spread awareness about it and kind of share my coping mechanisms with it, and that is anxiety. For a couple disclaimers for this video, because I know I'm going to have to clarify a couple of things. I have not had anxiety my entire life. The anxiety that I have isn't really that extreme. I would probably give it a 2.5 out of 5 in the scale of how bad it is. It is still something that I suffer with, and it's something that has been a lot worse in the past, but now it's something that I've kind of learned to control. It's just kind of like a little thing that always stays in the back of my head, and so it's still there. It's just not as bad as it has been before. This all really started out last December, so like mid-December last year, when I was working at Disney during my Disney college program, and the holiday rush was starting to get a little bit crazier, usually around like December 10th, and after that until like January, not even January, more February is when the parks are at their busiest, like more busy than they are in the summer. I was working during that. I was working merchandise. Everyone knows that. I'm not gonna go into that, but yeah, so I was working there. I was alone for the holidays. My family didn't come visit me because they visited me once before, and they were coming like January like 10th or something like that to drop off my sister for her college program. So I was fine. I was alone for holidays. It was okay. I had lots of friends down there and stuff, but just being alone without my family was kind of like one step to the beginning of my anxiety. And then for being on the college program, your scheduling is all crazy, especially during the holidays. You're the bottom of the chain there, so they will do whatever they want to you there. So I had 10 to 12 hour shifts at Disney. I would have one day off a week after working those crazy long shifts. I would be way too exhausted to even go to the park, so that was kind of a disappointment too. And also I was having to work late nights and then early mornings. Like sometimes I'll work until 12 a.m. and I'd have to be back at work at 8 a.m. the next day. Their like limit is 8 hours, but even if it is 8 hours, that's still a lot of time. But when you're on the college program, I didn't have a car. I had to rely on buses, and buses were an hour ride there and back by themselves. So it's really more like 5 hours of free time in between that where I'm just going to be sleeping the whole time. So during my shifts, I started to feel what I felt was anxious. I've never felt anything like that before. It was something that I never experienced, and I'll go into more detail how I was feeling like physically and stuff like that later once I talk about my symptoms for anxiety. But I would start to get these attacks, and I refer to them as anxiety attacks, not really panic attacks. I don't know what they were exactly, but they would start to hit at around 7 or 8 o'clock at night, because usually I was working that time, and they would last for about an hour, like exactly an hour. And during that hour, it was just HE double hockey stick, basically. So I actually ended up visiting a therapist when I was down there, just like a one-time, one and done thing. I just wanted to make sure that what I was feeling wasn't something that was physical with my body, and it was more mental and emotional, so I didn't have to worry about going to like the hospital or something like that. And so she just said, like, I imagined that this was something that was temporary. It was just going on during the holiday season, and she was right. Like, once the holiday season ended, I was perfectly fine. I mean, not perfectly, like I still had like anxiety obviously, but it wasn't those attacks anymore. Like, those attacks were done and over with after the holiday season, thank God. I wish that upon nobody. So like I said, I still have anxiety, which is why I'm sitting here, well, standing here making this video, and it's not as extreme as it is before, but it's still just like this annoying thing that happens every once in a while. So I'll go through my triggers first, and like what I've noticed is triggering my anxiety, and something that I can learn to prevent so it doesn't happen again. One of my biggest triggers is caffeine, and caffeine I know is a trigger for a lot of people. I've noticed that caffeine is more of a trigger when I have it later in the day, and it's a pain in the butt because Dunkin' Donuts has their $1 iced coffees from 2 to 6, and I usually limit myself to no caffeine past 2 o'clock, and sometimes I'll treat myself to a not decaf iced coffee or a sweet tea. Like, I've noticed their sweet teas don't really bug me as much as their iced coffees, but I feel like their iced coffees have a lot more caffeine, so I try and stay away from those. I usually get decaf. I'll usually limit myself to nothing past 2 p.m. unless I know I'm going to be keeping myself busy for the rest of the time. Like, most of the time when I go to Dunkin' Donuts, it's either when I'm off work and just not doing anything, or if I'm coming home from work and not doing anything after that. But if I'm out and about, like at the mall or something, I'll get a Dunkin' Donuts because that way my mind is more focused on other things. One of the triggers that happened a lot down in Florida and happens a lot here is the change of plans. So if I have something set to plan, I know that I'm doing something at this time, it's going to end at this time, then I'm going to be doing this thing. If something happens where I have to change my like daily agenda that's in my brain, I start to feel anxious. And one of those big things is if I have to stay at work longer. I don't know why that makes me feel anxious, but sometimes, especially in Florida, it was a lot worse because it was crazy busy and I really did not want to be there any longer than I had to be. So during that time was when it triggered my anxiety really bad and triggered those attacks really bad. But back home, if I have to be extended at work, I feel anxious for a little bit, but I actually don't mind working because the Disney store is a lot of fun. I really don't mind it. I'll start to feel anxious if I really have nobody to talk to. If I text someone, I'm just like, hey, and it takes them forever to answer, or if I'm feeling like I'm bothering them or something like that, I start to feel really anxious. And I feel like I'm one of those people that constantly annoy someone if I just text them, and so that makes me feel really anxious. Like anxious if I'm bothering someone and anxious if nobody's talking to me. So it's like not a win-win either way. Sleep is a huge trigger with my anxiety, and it's usually the hours of sleep I get through a night. So this was really big in Disney and it's still really big now. Like the other day I had to work at 7 a.m. and my usual drive to work is an hour and a half. So I had to leave my house at 5:30 and I woke up at 5, and I was feeling really anxious like the day before that shift. All I can think about was that shift and how I had to wake up early, and I felt anxious the entire day. It literally ruins my whole day if I have to wake up earlier than 8 a.m. for something like work. If it's something like more exciting than work, like a concert or a vacation or something like that, it's fine. But if it's for something serious like work or like the doctor or something like that, it does not go well the night before. So usually I will feel really anxious. Every time I like look at the clock before I go to sleep, I'm like, well, now I'm only gonna have 6 hours of sleep. Now I'm only gonna have 5 hours of sleep. And that was something that is really bad and something I'm still trying really hard to work on. But if I'm having trouble sleeping because I'm having really bad anxiety, there's a lot of techniques that people have posted online. I do a really awkward looking breathing technique if I can't sleep, and it hasn't failed me since. I'm usually out within like 5 minutes. So that's usually something that I'll go to if I can't fall asleep. For my symptoms, the symptoms that I have when I have anxiety, one of the biggest things is a really, really fast heartbeat, which is why I was nervous about going to the therapist, because I didn't know if that was something that was like my actual heart. But that's more with my anxiety that's triggering my insanely quick heartbeat. And I've read that a lot of people go through something like that when they are feeling anxious, so that's normal, which is good. But it's not good that it's going on, but it's good that that's normal. And also my hands start to shake really, really bad. My hands, it's like I can't even text sometimes because my hands are shaking so bad. And then also I start to get really, really quiet. And I know I normally am a quiet person in real life, like I don't really say much. But if I'm hanging out with a friend or something like that where I'm going to be talking a lot more, I'm just going to go quiet really quick and just like not say as much because I'm feeling really anxious inside my head. And I don't like to draw attention to myself if I'm feeling anxious. If I'm out hanging out with a friend and saying, hey, I'm feeling really anxious right now, it makes me feel more anxious because I feel like they're going to focus more attention on my anxiety, and I'm like, no, 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 please, no, okay. And so I'll usually keep quiet about it. It just helps the most when I get my mind off of feeling anxious. So if you're ever feeling anxious, just get your mind off of it somehow. And if I have nobody to talk to, one of the things that helps me a lot when I'm about to go to sleep and I can't sleep, or if I am feeling anxious, it's going to sound really lame, but I will just like think about just walking through the Magic Kingdom at Disney World. I'll just like mentally just walk myself down Main Street. I'll walk myself. Usually I'll end up falling asleep by the end of Main Street, but if I'm not falling asleep, I'll just walk through all the parks mentally and just like try and remember all the countries in Epcot. Just kind of like distract my mind from it. And I know that's probably not going to work for everybody who doesn't know Disney like the back of their hand, but that's just what helps me the most. Another one of the things that helps me feel a lot less anxious if I am feeling very anxious is having a peppermint. And peppermint can be gum, it can be a mint during the Christmas candy canes. And so peppermint is known as one of the types of like foods that could calm you down. So I'll usually have peppermint, like I'll have a piece of gum if I'm feeling anxious. It seriously helps so much. Just a little thing like that helps my anxiety so much. I never leave the house or anywhere without my purse that has all my gums and all my mints in it. So if you see me chew a mint, either I just want minty breath or I'm feeling anxious. Another thing that I do if I'm feeling anxious is I will think about stuff that I have coming up. So in Florida, one of the biggest things was seeing Troye Sivan in March and going to Playlist Live in April. So if I ever felt anxious, I'm like, hey, you're seeing some of your favorite people in a couple months. You can totally stick through this. Like at times when I was in Florida, I was so tempted to just pack my bags and go home. But just knowing that I was seeing some of my favorite people in a couple of months for the first time ever, that just helped me so much. Otherwise, I would have 100% left Florida if it wasn't for those concerts or for Playlist Live. And then the final thing that has helped me a lot with my anxiety is understanding things aren't in my control. So I was listening to a podcast called Ladies Who Lunch with Kat Riffick and Ingrid Nielsen. They did a podcast about anxiety, and they talked about how if they're ever feeling anxious, they'll just remind themselves that some things aren't in your control and there's nothing you can do about it. So whenever I had to get extended for work, like more so at the Disney store, I would just tell myself, hey, there's nothing you can do about it, just deal with it. And that usually works. So that is it for this video, talking all about my anxiety. Gotta love it. I hope this was helpful. I hope I shared some information. Hope you got to get to know me a little bit better. And I hope some of the ways that I cope with my anxiety help you. I should be going back to making normal videos soon. I actually have a couple of makeup videos planned, and I also have another Driving with Emily that's going to be coming out soon. And that's about it. So I will see you guys very, very soon. Have a great week and a magical day.